So we don't want to get our feelings hurt. We're going to kind of, keep them at a distance, take good care of them, and know that at any moment they could leave us. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a fantastic day. It is Wednesday, July 3rd here in South Georgia, and today we're going to plant some more of these, and I'm going to tell you why growing fall pumpkins is not for everybody. So several weeks ago when we were in the greenhouse, we got some of these giant butternut squash seeds started, about 12 of them, which should be more than enough for us. These are seeds that we get from our buddy Ryan over in West Virginia, who is a competitive giant vegetable grower, grows all kind of giant stuff, and we do still have some of these seeds on our website. These should have been planted before today, but better late than never, right? Now, although these giant butternut squash that we're planting today are technically not pumpkins, they kind of fall into the same category as pumpkins, so we're going to talk about them in the same light as pumpkins today, as we talk about our struggles with growing fall pumpkins in the past, and when you might need to plant fall pumpkins if you want to have some ready for, say, Halloween. So our fall pumpkin struggles in the past have been well documented. We've failed a lot more times than we've succeeded. One year I did do okay with a fall planting of polar bear pumpkins, but then the following year we got skunk pest just absolutely decimated our pumpkin vines. So we have failed, like I said, more than we have succeeded. And it's not just me around here that this happens to. I don't know anybody that can grow fall pumpkins around here consistently from year to year. That's why all the pumpkin stands around here, they import all their pumpkins that they're selling. They'll plant a few pumpkin plants out there to make it look like they're growing some, but they're bringing all those in from up north. Now, when we're talking about pumpkins or winter squash, you've got three main species that you can grow, and some of those do a lot better than others, especially for us down here. So you've got the cucurbita pepo type, or sea pepo type as we like to call it. Those are your jack-o'-lanterns, and those are the ones we have the toughest time growing. I can't tell you how many times I have planted some jack-o'-lanterns around this time of year hoping to have some for Halloween, and it just never works out. The plants never make it. They always end up falling prey to some pest or disease pressure. Then you've got the cucurbita maxima or sea maxima types. These are like your kabocha squash. A lot of your pie pumpkins are the sea maxima species. These are really good to eat, and these are ones I've had kind of variable success with. I think the polar bear that we've grown in the past is a sea maxima. Like I said, I have done it once, but they don't always do that great for me with a fall planting. A lot of times they're just not quite tough enough to hang around. I can do pretty good with them in the spring, but not that great in the fall. And then you got the cucurbita machata or the sea machata types, the butternuts like we're planting today. The Seminole pumpkin here is also sea machata. These are the ones we have the best luck with. They tend to be the toughest. They may not be as pretty as some of those nice big jack-o'-lanterns or as pretty as some of those nice colorful kabocha squash, but these have a lot tougher plants and tend to do a lot better in stressful conditions. Now, the next thing a lot of people always want to know is, when do I need to plant to have them ready by a certain time? Because if you're planting pumpkins or winter squash this time of year, you're probably trying to have them ready before Halloween. Some people are growing them for Thanksgiving decorations or to eat at Thanksgiving, but a lot of people are trying to time it so they do have them ready by the end of October. Now, maturity date can vary some with pumpkins from one variety to the next, but usually you're looking at about 100 to 120 days. The heat units out here this time of year can speed that up a little bit, so it might not be quite that long, but it's good to figure on, say, 100, 110 days to make sure you get them ready by whenever you want them ready. Now, like I told you earlier, I have had absolutely zero success planting jack-o'-lanterns this time of year and actually growing any so they were ready by Halloween. I could grow jack-o'-lanterns in the spring and probably harvest a few decent ones, but they wouldn't store all the way until October. I don't really have a good way to store them. Even under the barn, they just eventually end up melting in the heat. So if I want jack-o'-lanterns, I just have to go buy jack-o'-lanterns. There's virtually no way for me to have jack-o'-lanterns in the fall down here that came from my backyard garden. Now the C. maxima types, the kabocha type pumpkins or winter squash, whatever you want to call them, I can plant those in the spring and usually do really good, harvest a buggy full of those like we've done many times, but I can't always get them to store all the way until, say, late October, early November. I'll have a few that make it, but a vast majority of them either end up melting under the barn or kind of rotting, and so I have to use those pretty quick. I don't get a super long storage window out of those. Now the C. machata types, like the Seminole pumpkin right here, tend to store the longest. They have really good storage potential. We harvested these Seminole pumpkins around this time last year, and I've still got a decent amount of them underneath the barn that are still good. Brooklyn will usually take 3 or 4 of these inside, cut them in half, roast them in the oven, and just keep a Tupperware thing full of pumpkin meat in the fridge and make muffins 2 or 3 times a week. These still eat really good a year after being harvested. Now your butternut squash, which are also C. machata, usually store pretty good, but I usually don't get a year's worth of storage out of them. I had about 3 or 4 of these underneath the barn. Most of them melted. I do have this one here left. Not sure if it's still any good or not, but hey, let's cut it open and see. So I've got my old trusty machete here. Y'all think I can cut this thing open in one lick? If I can, I probably need to go do some more push-ups, don't I? Let's see if we can get it. Here we go. Maybe not the best thing to be eating right now. So if we take a look inside this bad boy here, looks like we do have some mold starting to grow, all that white stuff inside there. But the outside meat here, or the meat closer to the outside, actually looks and feels pretty good. I guess if you were hungry enough, you could scrape out all those seeds and some of that mold and still eat this. I'm not going to eat it since we still got plenty of Seminole pumpkins underneath the barn there. But you can see just how much meat is on these things here. You can get a lot of groceries just out of one of these giant butternut squash. But anyways, back to what we were talking about earlier, growing fall pumpkins, or as I should say, growing pumpkins for a fall harvest is not for everybody, and not every variety of pumpkin is going to do well depending on where you live. So if you live in the deep south like we do, I wouldn't even try jack-o'-lanterns. You can try some of those C. maxima types if you want to, but I would probably have a backup plan. If you're in the deep south and going to try growing pumpkins for a fall harvest, stick with the C. machata types. I know they might not be the prettiest and sexiest looking pumpkins out there, but you'll be a lot more successful with those, and you should have some good groceries to eat. I'm not saying it's going to work 100% of the time, but that's your best shot at it. Since we've got some room and I've got some transplants here, we're going to plant some of these giant butternut squash this time of year. Hopefully have some ready for fall. They could all croak. They could all make it. These are really fun to grow for the kids. The kids like going out there and seeing just how big they've gotten. So I'm going to give it a shot. So we've got this blank no-till plot that's going to be the perfect canvas for a row of those giant butternut squash, and I'm also going to plant some more cucumbers and summer squash right here on this end. I've got 3 drip lines already laid out there, already running right now. I covered those 2. That's where my succession planting of summer squash and cucumbers is going to go. Might not plant those today. And then right here is where we're going to put those giant butternut transplants. We need to give these a decent amount of room. Might could even give them more room than that. I think 1 row is going to be plenty though. I didn't cover that tape because I'll cover it as we put those transplants in the ground. So we basically did our fad system that we do with everything around here. We made a furrow, we amended the furrow with some of that Coop Grow fertilizer, then we've got our drip tape down in the furrow. And just as a side note, and I may have asked y'all this before, but does anybody know what this gray stuff right here is? I only see it in this particular no-till plot. I'm guessing it has something to do with all the no-till biology going on, but I have no idea what it is. It's not everywhere, but you'll see it in just some random spots in this plot. So I'm going to plant my transplants right along that row of drip tape. Now I considered, and it's not a terrible idea to do this when you're growing giant pumpkins or say giant butternut squash, things that vine and pin down vines everywhere. It wouldn't be a terrible idea to put 3 or 4 lines of drip tape out here in the area where those vines are going to be growing to keep them happy as they grow. But we're just going to stick with the 1 line of drip tape for now. We've got that 6-inch emitter spacing on that tape, which puts out plenty of water. Should keep these plants happy for the most part. And like I told you earlier, these probably should have went in the ground a couple weeks ago. Look at the roots on those things. So they were sitting in the greenhouse on top of a heat mat that wasn't turned on, and they were getting watered every day, and those roots just kept growing and growing and growing. So about 9 of those plants there look decent. I don't really need 9 for this 30-foot row here. The vines on these plants get huge. I could probably get away with just 2 or 3 plants along this entire 30-foot row. But for insurance purposes, I think I'll go ahead and plant all 9, and then we'll come back and thin some out later. So no need to get overly precise when spacing these things. I didn't even measure that. I'd say it's around 4 foot apart. And if they all make it, we'll probably come back in here and remove every other plant. Now, although I'm not really worried about the plant spacing a whole lot right now, I do want to make sure I get each of these transplants right on top of one of these drip emitters here, because when these things get up and going, they can be quite thirsty. So we've got a drip emitter right there. No need to plant these super deep. Should be pretty good right there. Just tuck it in there nice and tight, and we'll do the rest of them the same way. And there we go. So we'll just sit back and see what happens over the next few months. Now, I'm not going to prune these to grow a giant like you can. I'm just going to let all the fruits develop, and I'll be happy with, say, 15 to 20 pounders like we got last year. You can selectively prune these, put all the energy into one fruit, and get a 40 or 50 pound giant butternut, but I'm not going to do all that this time. Now, we are going to treat these well. I wouldn't say we're going to baby them, but we're going to treat them very well. As soon as they've overcome their transplant shock and started growing, probably going to hit them with some of that Agri-Thrive fruit and flower. So we're going to treat them right. We just don't want to get too emotionally invested in these things, because we know at any point between now and the end of September, they could just croak. So we don't want to get our feelings hurt. We're going to kind of, keep them at a distance, take good care of them, and know that at any moment they could leave us. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and if you think all the stuff I said earlier is hogwash and you've found ways to grow jack-o'-lanterns and other types of pumpkins in a hot climate for a fall harvest, please do share all your tips and tricks in the comments below, so some of the people that are wanting to try it can learn from you and maybe be successful as well. And if you want to join me in growing some of these giant butternuts, we've got the seeds available on our website at lazydogfarm.com. And if you want to see our harvest from last year, besides that one I showed you earlier, watch this video. You can see just how big the plants get and how many big squash we had out there in that plot. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.